There comes a point in life when the dynamic between parents and their children begins to shift. You've spent decades nurturing them, guiding their steps, and putting their needs above your own. Then one day something feels different. Maybe they brush off your guidance. Maybe they discount your thoughts. Or perhaps they even speak to you in a way that makes you feel small, or worse, like a burden. And that stings. If your children have started treating you with less dignity than you deserve, it's normal to feel disheartened, even upset. You may feel the urge to remind them of everything you've sacrificed, the years you devoted to raising them. But here's the reality: frustration alone won't restore respect. In fact, it often pushes them further away. Fortunately, there's a far more powerful and peaceful way to reclaim the respect you've earned, without shouting, without conflict, and without resentment. In today's video show, I'll walk you through 6 meaningful actions you can take when your children no longer show you the respect you deserve. These are small shifts in behavior, but they hold the power to reshape how your children view and respond to you. Some might be unexpected, but stick around till the end to learn how you can reestablish your rightful place as a valued and respected figure in your family. Let's begin. Action 1. Stop seeking their validation. One of the biggest missteps parents often make as they grow older is trying too hard to win their children's approval. Maybe you've noticed yourself falling into this pattern. You constantly rearrange your plans to suit them. You agree when you would rather decline. You prioritize their needs in hopes that one day they'll recognize your efforts and treat you better. But here's a tough truth. The more you try to earn their validation, the more likely they are to lose respect for you. Respect doesn't come from overextending yourself. It comes from valuing yourself. When you constantly accommodate, avoid conflict, or ignore your own needs, you're sending a silent message. Your feelings don't matter as much. And once that idea takes hold, it becomes easy for them to overlook your worth. I once knew a woman named Margaret. She had been fiercely independent in her younger years, but as she aged, she began deferring to her children on nearly everything. She stopped sharing her thoughts, reorganized her life around their preferences, and remained quiet even when they spoke to her dismissively. "I just want to keep the peace in the family," she once confided. But the outcome was painful. Her children stopped appreciating her. They began seeing her as someone who would always give in, always remain silent, always go along. Margaret thought she was preserving harmony, but in truth, she was slowly silencing herself. If you feel your children no longer respect you, the first move isn't to demand their respect. It's to stop depending on it. Establish boundaries. Say no when you need to. Share your views even if they push back. Because the moment you begin treating yourself with respect, they'll be forced to see you in a new light. And eventually, that respect will return. Action 2. Don't argue, lead by example. When your children dismiss your input, speak over you, or show disregard, it's tempting to snap back, to defend yourself, to remind them of your sacrifices, to insist they listen. But let me share something that could spare you years of disappointment. Arguing never changes minds. Think about it. When was the last time someone genuinely began to respect you after a heated exchange? Respect isn't something you force with words. It's something you embody. It comes from your demeanor, from the calm strength you show when your patience is tested. When you respond to disrespect with fury, you're simply reinforcing their perception that they can provoke and control you. I once met a man named Richard, a retired educator who had spent decades commanding respect in his classroom. But at home, things were different. His adult children began sidelining him. They brushed off his opinions, ignored his concerns, and sometimes even chuckled when he offered correction. At first, Richard argued, determined to reclaim the respect he thought he had earned, but each confrontation made things worse. Eventually, Richard took a different approach. He chose to stop pushing and began to truly listen. Rather than demanding respect, he started living as though he already had it. He communicated with calm assurance, carried himself with quiet strength, and stopped trying to be right. Gradually, his children noticed. They saw a man who didn't beg for validation, didn't compete for authority. He simply embodied it. If you feel your children no longer treat you with the respect you deserve, don't waste your energy battling them for it. Show them what self-respect looks like by the way you carry yourself. Maintain your dignity. speak with purpose and assurance. And above all, don't stoop to their level, because when you stand firm with grace and maturity, they will sense it, and eventually they'll rise to meet you. If you're still watching this video and these insights are resonating with you, comment number 2 below so I know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to do that and tap the bell icon. Your support helps us keep sharing helpful content to empower and uplift you. Now, let's continue. Action 3. Let go of emotional dependence. One of the most difficult lessons in later life is learning that your emotional well-being cannot hinge on your children. You may love them with your whole heart, and of course, you want that love and respect returned. But the moment they sense that your sense of worth depends on them, the balance of the relationship shifts. Here's the truth. Even those closest to us, our children included, tend to respect people who maintain emotional independence. When you begin to depend on them for affirmation, affection, or attention, it creates pressure. Instead of feeling appreciated, they start to feel overwhelmed. That's when the distance starts to grow. They may become short with you, seem annoyed, or stop engaging altogether. The more you seek their affection, the more it tends to slip away. I once knew a woman named Clara. She was a generous, devoted mother who poured everything she had into her children. But as they became adults and got caught up in their own responsibilities, she spent her days waiting for their calls. And when they didn't come, she would call them, often more than they wanted. She'd remind them how much she missed them and how much she wished they would visit more. But instead of drawing them closer, it drove them further away. Her calls began to feel like a duty rather than something they welcomed. Then one day, Grace decided to try something new. She stopped waiting by the phone. She quit being the one to reach out first. Instead, she turned her energy inward, picking up new interests, reconnecting with friends, and focusing on her own joy. And something unexpected happened. Her children began calling on their own. They started treating her time with more respect and began to view her as someone who had a rich, independent life. The takeaway is clear. The less you rely on your children to feel appreciated, the more they'll begin to value your presence. When you demonstrate that you're capable of standing tall on your own, they start to respect you. Not because they have to, but because they genuinely admire who you are. Action 4. Establish clear boundaries and uphold them. One of the main reasons children begin to lose respect for their parents is because the parents allow it. If you let your children speak to you rudely, ignore your viewpoints, or treat your feelings as insignificant, they'll keep doing it. Not because they mean harm, but because people, especially family, often treat us in the way we permit them to. Setting boundaries doesn't mean cutting ties or picking fights. It means calmly but firmly deciding what behavior you will no longer tolerate. And more importantly, it means standing by those decisions when they are tested. I once met a man named Edward, a retired executive who had spent his life leading teams with clarity and authority. But with his grown children, he faltered. They spoke over him, dismissed his opinions, and even mocked some of his choices. At first, Edward said nothing. He convinced himself it wasn't worth the conflict. But with time, he realized that by staying silent, he was teaching them that their disrespect was acceptable. Eventually, Edward took a stand. When his son interrupted, he quietly said, "I'll continue once you're ready to hear me out." When his daughter brushed off his views, he responded, "You're entitled to disagree, but I deserve to be treated respectfully." And when they continued testing his patience, he laid it out clearly. If they couldn't engage with basic courtesy, he wouldn't be spending time with them. And what happened next? They began to pay attention. At first, there was pushback, but slowly they came to understand he meant what he said. They saw a man who respected himself enough to insist on being treated well, and that shift changed everything. If your children are treating you poorly, it's worth asking, are you allowing it to happen? Because if you don't create boundaries, they won't do it for you. And if you won't defend your own dignity, no one else will. If you're still watching this video and these insights are helping, please comment number 4 below to let me know you're still here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to hit that button and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of our future videos. Your support means a lot and helps us keep creating content that informs, uplifts, and empowers. Now let's continue. Action 5. Stop giving when there is no appreciation. One of the fastest ways to lose respect is to keep offering your time, help, or support to those who don't value it. And as parents, we often fall into this pattern without realizing it. We pour in our time, our energy, our resources, even when our efforts are ignored, overlooked, or met with entitlement instead of gratitude. But here's the reality. When you keep giving to someone who doesn't appreciate it, you don't build closeness. You don't gain respect. What you create is expectation. They stop viewing your generosity as a thoughtful act and begin to treat it as something they're owed. And when you finally stop, they don't respond with thanks. They respond with annoyance. I once knew a man named Martin, a devoted father who always went the extra mile for his children. He supported them financially, dropped everything whenever they needed help, and even adjusted his entire schedule just to make their lives easier. But instead of thankfulness, he got complaints. They didn't say thank you. They just expected more. And the hardest part, when he eventually needed their support, they were unavailable. One day, Martin decided to change things. He quit stretching himself thin. He stopped offering assistance before it was requested. And most importantly, he began to say no when he needed to protect his time and energy. At first, his children were upset. They couldn't understand why their father was no longer always available. But gradually, something changed. They began to respect his time. They recognized his generosity for what it truly was, a gift, not an endless obligation. If it feels like your children no longer value your time, your efforts, or your help, it's worth pausing to reflect. Are you giving too much? And if you stopped, how would they react? Because when you make it clear that your kindness is tied to mutual respect, others begin to treat it with the seriousness it deserves. Action 6, create a life that doesn't revolve around them. One of the most powerful ways to restore your children's respect is to demonstrate that your joy and identity don't depend on them. As parents, we're wired to put our children first. But as the years go on, the relationship evolves. And if you've built your entire world around them, they may begin to see you as someone with no direction outside of their lives. Respect often grows when people see you living with purpose, when you have your own interests, your own passions, your own meaningful routines. If your children sense that you're depending on them for stimulation, recognition, or emotional fulfillment, they might feel overwhelmed. Or worse, they may view you as lacking independence. I remember a woman named Diane, a widow in her late 70s. After losing her husband, she shifted all her attention to her adult children. She called frequently, gave unsolicited advice, and expected them to fill the emotional void her partner once occupied. But rather than bringing them closer, it actually pushed them away. Their visits became infrequent, phone calls grew shorter, and Diana found herself lonelier than ever. Then she made a decision. She joined a local book club, began traveling with friends, volunteered at a nearby community center, and stopped revolving her life entirely around her children. And something remarkable happened. Her children began to reach out more. They were interested in what she was up to. They admired her independence. They began to respect her in a new way. If your children aren't showing you the respect you deserve, ask yourself, do they see you as someone living a rich, fulfilling life? Or do they see someone who's waiting on the sidelines for their attention? Because the moment they witness you actively living, not just getting by, they'll start to view you in an entirely different light. If you're still watching this video and these ideas are resonating with you, please comment number 6 below to let me know you're still here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Hit that button and turn on notifications so you don't miss future videos. Your support means the world and allows us to keep bringing you helpful and inspiring content. Final thoughts. Respect isn't something you can force your children to give. It's something you earn through your actions, through the standards you set, and through the way you live every day. If your children have started to treat you with less kindness, less care, or less regard, don't waste your energy getting upset. Change your strategy. Stop seeking their approval, because the less you depend on it, the more freely they'll offer it. Lead with your actions, because your quiet strength will always speak louder than confrontation. Let go of emotional dependence, because when you're whole on your own, they'll begin to value your presence more. Set clear boundaries, because people, even those closest to you, will treat you based on the limits you enforce. Don't keep giving without acknowledgement, because when kindness becomes an expectation, it loses its power. And above all, create a life outside of them, because those who live with purpose and joy are naturally respected. If you take these steps, something amazing will begin to happen. Your children will start seeing you differently, not as someone clinging to their attention, but as someone who carries themselves with quiet strength, someone who commands respect simply by being who they are. And in time, that respect will return, not because you demanded it, but because you truly earned it. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share one insight that stood out and how you plan to apply it in your own life. Your thoughts matter to us, and we love reading what you have to say. It encourages and motivates us to keep creating. If this video brought you value, please give it a like, share it with others who might benefit, and make sure to subscribe. Your support allows us to continue producing thoughtful content that informs and uplifts. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.